Let's get back to weapons. If you delve into historical scrolls and treatises, you will find many references to the fact that even in ancient times, humans were too concerned with how to exterminate their own kind, and they successfully used rabies in their weaponry. How did they do that? Well, I'll tell you how. Take the case of the ancient Indian treatise Arthashastra. It dates from the 4th century BC. It details all the then-known methods of making poison-tipped arrows. There are many variations on this theme to the point of recklessness, but one piece of advice is simply treacherous and horrifying in its brutality. It is simply necessary to take the blood of a sick muskrat. This is a rabid animal, as the Brahmin Kautilya explains. He claims that if you hit just one enemy, he will infect 10 comrades, and they will infect 9 more warriors. Thus, it was believed that a single arrow could kill 10 people. Even today, muskrats are the most common source of rabies in India. The same written source recommends replacing the remedy with mad goat's blood. Even then, they knew that domestic animals could catch this terrible infection and become dangerous to their owners. So, they kept a close eye on them and destroyed those that became infected. The Arab scientist and physician Avicenna Abu Ali al-Hussein ibn Abdullah ibn Sina described this affliction as an infection in his amazing work, The Canon of Medicine, Al-Qunun fit Tib. He also offered a variety of remedies. Avicenna blamed the onset of the disease not on contact with the victim, but on a fluid imbalance in the body of the patient and those who communicate with him or her. We can be sure that it's a deadly infection. This is proven by a number of descriptions in the treatise. We take examples from the famous treatise of the great scientist. The unfortunate man became like a mad dog after being bitten. Among the symptoms are the classic signs of this disease: unconfirmed aggression, abundant saliva secretion, pronounced hydrophobia. Avicenna also warns that the bite of a wolf, weasel, fox, or jackal can be just as dangerous to humans. As an antidote, Avicenna used the blood of dogs infected with this disease. He also recommended applying the liver of a rabid dog to the bite as an effective technique with a higher chance of healing. The aforementioned ancient Greek Lyssa was the goddess of madness and one of the 3 sisters responsible for vengeance in the pantheon. A person bitten by a rabid animal can exhibit a wide range of behavioral characteristics: fear of light and water, delirium, nightmares, painful convulsions, numerous ulcers on the body, aggressive hyperactivity, infernal thirst without the ability to swallow any liquid in a violent variant of the disease. The ancient Greeks said that Lyssa enslaved a person who had the above symptoms. They believed that this goddess simply did not let her victims go, and when the unfortunate person died of rabies, people said that he had replenished Lyssa's army in the beyond. Every ancient physician contributed to the knowledge of this deadly and highly contagious infection. Aristotle pointed out the possibility of direct transmission through a bite, while Celsus introduced the world to the new concept of hydrophobia. Medieval medicine was as ignorant as this distant historical epoch. Infectious diseases and devastating epidemics were the order of the day. The famous physician of the time, Scriconius Largus, recommended the use of hyena skin poultices as a remedy. Of course, it was powerless to save the patient's life. This dangerous infection gave rise to many dark superstitions in the face of fear and almost 100% mortality rate at the time. What was particularly frightening was that the symptoms could not appear for a long time. People, therefore, believed in the diabolical nature of the disease. Irrational fear often led to the death of those who were lucky enough to avoid infection. Even if there were no symptoms, people who were simply bitten by a dog or other domestic or wild animals could take their own lives, even if there was any doubt that it was a rabid monster. The unfortunate could be killed by relatives or neighbors living nearby with the best of intentions, simply because in their eyes a person could be reborn into an evil, bloodthirsty, and merciless monster. No one allowed the thought that a person might not be infected. One bite was enough to condemn a person without trial or investigation. Unfortunately, many people lose sight of the fact that it is not just a scratch that is dangerous. any contact with the saliva or blood of an infected person can be very bad. Doesn't this remind you of werewolves, who can turn into ferocious beasts and kill anyone who gets in their way? All it takes is for a virus to enter your body through an open wound and infect it. If drops of liquid containing the rabies virus gets into your eyes while cutting up the carcass of a hunting trophy, you are likely to become infected. In the Middle Ages, hunters, butchers, and warriors were the most likely to suffer from this disease due to the nature of their activities. Having hunted an animal with unusual behavior, the head of the family could bring a dangerous disease into the house with his own hands, killing his own family and those with whom he was in daily contact. In those days, due to a lack of medical knowledge and poor hygiene, rabies could kill even large and fairly developed communities and towns. In medieval Europe, in Belgium and France, people who had been bitten by domestic or wild animals immediately went to the burial place of Saint Hubertus, who was considered to be a powerful patron of hunters. There was a misconception that a single thread from his oration would save one from death by rabies. Imagine a grim picture. Crowds of pilgrims wander day and night to find salvation from a deadly disease. The disease slowly and inevitably drives them mad, robs them of reason and sanity. The appearance of these people becomes more and more animal-like. They can become more aggressive and angry with each passing hour. Such pilgrims, once under the roof, could destroy entire families or the inhabitants of inns, visitors to taverns. After all, it was customary to let such people into one's home without a problem. It was believed that by doing good, you were helping them achieve a good end. But such kindness from healthy people could lead to their own death in terrible agony. Sometimes it was rabies that became the hidden cause of massacres, not only in the Middle Ages, but also in later times. The Italian genius, Leonardo da Vinci, advised making a bomb from a number of ingredients: sulfur, tarantula venom, certain types of toad, and arsenic. The highlight was the saliva of rabid dogs. He made this discovery in 1500. The Polish general Kazimierz Siemianowicz suggested that in order to effectively shorten the duration of a siege, the saliva of rabid dogs and other animals should be collected and sent by catapult to the heads of the enemy. It was to be placed in fragile ceramic vessels. This happened in 1650. Of course, the general was modest about the methods of collection and the volunteers. Fortunately, the idea was rejected and never carried out. Meanwhile, medicine slowly but steadily developed, helping to unravel the mysteries of rabies epidemics that raged from time to time in different parts of the world. Back in the 16th century, Dr. Girolamo Francostoro from Italy proved that even a small bite can cause infection. Giovanni Morgagni, as long ago as in 18th century, raised the idea that the pathogen spreads through the fibers of the nervous system and not blood components. And only in the 19th century, it was found out and proved that the disease had an infectious nature. The doctor who did this was François Magendie. The authorship of the first successful vaccine belongs to Louis Pasteur. It was he who predicted a resounding success in 1885. The disease was no longer 100% fatal. If the patient went to the doctor immediately after being bitten by an animal, there was a good chance of survival. The only continent without rabies is Antarctica. There are no natural outbreaks of the disease. This dangerous infection still kills around 50,000 people every year. In the high-risk zone of Asia, it is particularly dangerous in India, 70 to 90% of all victims of the virus. We shouldn't be lulled into a false sense of security by those living or traveling in European countries. Stray dogs are quite rare there and are carefully monitored by local authorities. Pets are vaccinated with a specially developed vaccine. People living in Europe today rarely come into contact with rabies. In fact, these are the people who have suffered in Africa and Asia. The situation there remains difficult for a number of historical and economic reasons. To be continued in the next episode. Stay tuned.